time for them to up the federal subsidy that is unchanged for almost 20 years.
We need to deepen trade relationships with everybody else in the world.
We want a deal, we want a fair deal, but we're also realistic.
Could Canada really start to break apart?
BC is done sending millions of dollars to Ottawa without receiving anything back. Premier Eby just declared war on federal equalization payments. And the shocking part is that Canada is about to lose its richest province any minute.
We're really practical about what we need to do and how we need to move forward. And I think the Premier was just trying to be as accommodating as we can. But that patience, that flexibility is only so limited.
Frankly, I think most Canadians have no clue just how badly British Columbia gets screwed by Ottawa's redistribution racket. While Premier Eby publicly calls Western separation talk a tired trope that needs to stop, his actions reveal a completely different strategy, one that's methodically building the economic and legal foundation for independence. When your premier has to actively dismiss separation discussions at every opportunity, you know the movement has gained serious momentum beyond political circles.
$750 million for Quebec to deal with immigration pressures from the federal government. They've offered us nothing, $0. I cannot understand how that could happen. I cannot understand why we cannot get a per capita share at a minimum.
Numbers paint a devastating picture of federal theft that would make any self-respecting province question why they're staying in this confederational scam. BC contributes roughly 13% of Canada's total GDP, while representing only 13.6% of the population. But here's where the mathematical insanity really kicks in. They're losing billions on this arrangement. The province generates $295 billion in annual GDP, making it Canada's third largest economy, yet somehow doesn't qualify for a single penny of equalization payments, while Quebec collects $13.9 billion. That's 53% of all federal transfers going to one province.
It's time for them to up the federal subsidy that is unchanged for almost 20 years in British Columbia, while East Coast fare users continue to see benefits from the federal government.
Meanwhile, Ottawa's favoritism becomes crystal clear when you examine infrastructure spending disparities that reveal the true nature of this rigged game. Federal support for marine Atlantic ferry services reaches $130 million annually, while BC Ferries, serving double the population and carrying far greater economic importance, receives only $37.8 million in federal funding. Eby calls this structural unfairness, and he's absolutely right to challenge a system designed to punish Western prosperity.
The federal government show up on the East Coast and subsidize ferry users that already get a $300 subsidy per each $1 that a BC ferry user gets.
Think about the sheer audacity of a federal system where BC's Port of Vancouver handles 30% of Canada's total trade volume, $240 billion worth of goods annually, yet the province that built and maintains this critical infrastructure gets treated like Ottawa's personal ATM. The port alone processes more trade value than most countries generate in their entire economies. But somehow, federal bureaucrats believe BC should be grateful for scraps while watching their wealth flow eastward to subsidize provinces that contribute a fraction of their economic output.
BC will be the economic engine, frankly, of the new economy that we're building here in Canada.
Eby's decision to support Newfoundland's constitutional challenge represents a seismic shift from traditional BC politics toward aggressive confrontation with federal authority. You don't join lawsuits against the federal equalization system unless you're prepared for constitutional warfare. And you definitely don't publicly accuse Ottawa of systematic unfairness unless you're building a legal case for why your province deserves complete independence from this dysfunctional confederation.
The things that we need to do to strengthen our local economies, that has to be the central piece, I think, as we go forward.
What makes BC's position absolutely unassailable is its complete economic independence from federal handouts, unlike provinces that survive on Ottawa's redistribution schemes. The province exports $46.8 billion in goods annually, including $8.4 billion in energy products that prove its energy sector dominance. BC's mining operations generate $13.4 billion yearly. Agriculture contributes $4.6 billion, and tourism adds another $22.3 billion to provincial revenues, creating an economic foundation that could easily support independence while maintaining current service levels.
The first shipment of LNG from BC's coast will make a material difference in Canada's GDP, the largest private sector investment in Canadian history.
And the thing that I really like about the LNG Canada project is not just that it gets us to diverse markets, is not just that it provides jobs and employment for British Columbians and for Canadians, but that we're doing it in a way that gets our resources to market that is responsible.
Recent infrastructure achievements under EB's leadership demonstrate BC's capacity to deliver major projects without federal interference or funding dependence. His government just announced massive LNG export terminal developments that will generate $40 billion in economic activity over the next decade, proving the province can execute world-class energy infrastructure, while Ottawa spends years studying environmental impact assessments that kill Western projects through bureaucratic death by 1,000 cuts.
In terms of traditional energy projects, we also have Cedar LNG and Silism's LNG that are reaching final investment decision or are in construction. So there are major energy projects that are happening.
BC Hydro's latest power procurement initiative showcases the province's energy independence, which makes federal oversight completely unnecessary for its economic prosperity. When Site C Dam reaches full operation this year, it will generate electricity for 500,000 homes while increasing BC Hydro's total supply by 8%. The province already produces 98% of its electricity from renewable sources, achieving complete energy self-sufficiency that most countries can only dream about.
Because of our unique geography, being on the coast, we do face additional challenges.
Geographic advantages position BC for inevitable independent success, controlling 27,000 kilometers of Pacific coastline and managing 19 major ports that connect directly to Asia-Pacific markets, worth $31 trillion annually. Vancouver International Airport processes 26.4 million passengers yearly, while generating $16.3 billion in economic activity, creating transportation infrastructure that rivals major international hubs without requiring federal subsidies or oversight.
Of identifying a proponent and an actual project, then let's have that conversation.
EB's strategic pipeline position reveals a premier who's learned to work around federal obstruction rather than through federal cooperation channels. He recently indicated willingness to support northern pipeline projects if they come from private backers rather than federal subsidies, essentially telling energy companies that BC will do business with anyone putting their own money where their mouth is, rather than expecting taxpayer-funded corporate welfare. If you're finding this constitutional crisis as fascinating as I am, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next in this Canadian political earthquake.
BC signed on with Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan at the Western Premiers Conference for a corridor running from Manitoba to Prince Rupert.
Energy corridor developments between Western provinces demonstrate regional cooperation that completely bypasses federal coordination requirements, proving provinces can deliver major infrastructure projects when Ottawa's bureaucratic interference is removed from the equation. Recent agreements for energy transportation from Manitoba to Prince Rupert represent practical infrastructure development that reduces dependence on central Canadian approval processes while increasing Western economic integration.
The idea of separating here is a non-starter, and that doesn't take anything away from our reasonable demands that the federal government ensure we have access to the same level of funding, the same opportunities that Quebec and Ontario get.
I believe what we're witnessing is the methodical construction of economic independence that makes separation discussions shift from theoretical to practical planning sessions. BC's technology sector employs 106,000 workers while contributing $29.4 billion annually to the provincial economy, creating a diversified economic base that extends far beyond traditional resource extraction into knowledge-based industries that thrive without federal government involvement.
I was on a trade mission to Japan, to Korea, to Malaysia, and as part of that mission, I met with major proponents of this project, with Kogas, with Mitsubishi, with Petronas.
To Japan, to South Korea, to Malaysia. These are countries that we're trying to diversify our trade relationships with, where I was just saying, like, we want to work with you guys. We need to deepen our relationship with you. We just don't want to be sending those signals that we're going to hurt them.
International recognition of BC as a distinct economic entity during trade negotiations proves that foreign governments already treat the province as independently viable rather than viewing it as just another Canadian subdivision. Major international businesses establish Pacific operations in Vancouver specifically because of British Columbia's strategic advantages and capabilities, not because of federal government policies that mostly serve central Canadian manufacturing interests.
The new economy that we're building here in Canada, because of our port access to markets, the resources we have, and we're going to facilitate access for other provinces too.
Financial markets evaluate BC separately from federal government metrics through independent credit ratings that recognize the province's distinct economic profile and fiscal strength. International credit agencies assign BC a AAA rating based on provincial economic fundamentals rather than federal transfer dependency, suggesting financial markets view the province as completely capable of independent operation without federal financial backing.
The underlying message about a lack of fairness more seriously. And I don't think that people really in the rest of the country understand why a lot of Western Canadians, especially those in the prairies, in the oil sector, in the mining sector, in farming, really feel kind of hard done by and passed over. And
recent polling reveals explosive growth in Western alienation that should terrify every federal politician who depends on resource wealth flowing eastward from provinces that generate actual economic value. Support for increased provincial autonomy reached 67% in BC, according to 2024 surveys, while 31% of British Columbians now support exploring all alternatives regarding federal relationships, the highest percentage ever recorded in provincial history.
Canada's Clarity Act provides a clear roadmap for provinces to lead.
Constitutional tools already exist for BC separation through Canada's own Clarity Act, designed originally to handle Quebec independence, but equally applicable to any provincial departure from Confederation. The legislation provides a clear legal framework for referendum processes and negotiations, meaning BC could pursue independence through existing Canadian law rather than requiring revolutionary action or constitutional crisis to achieve sovereignty.
The challenges we face, the skills that our team has, are why I've made the decision to strategically match members of our caucus.
What makes this moment particularly explosive is EB's recent cabinet reshuffling that positions BC for increased economic autonomy while building relationships with other frustrated provinces. His strategic appointments focus on jobs, economic development, and responding to changing provincial needs. Exactly the kind of preparation you'd expect from a government planning for greater independence from federal oversight.
Western provinces are Canada's economic engine, and BC controls critical Pacific trade routes and natural resources.
Ottawa's panic over provincial challenges to equalization formulas reveals just how financially dependent the federal government has become on Western resource wealth, particularly BC's massive economic contribution to national revenues. Without BC's $295 billion economy and the tax revenues it generates, Canada's entire social program structure would collapse faster than a house of cards, eliminating Quebec's generous equalization payments and maritime federal subsidies overnight.
We have major projects in British Columbia and projects that overlap with Alberta that will have similar impact on Canada's GDP.
Simple economics demonstrates that BC holds every advantage in constitutional negotiations, controlling critical Pacific trade infrastructure that processes nearly 1/3 of Canada's total trade volume while generating massive wealth through diversified economic sectors. When staying in Canada costs more than leaving, and when federal policies consistently harm provincial interests while benefiting eastern competitors, independence becomes economic common sense rather than radical separatist politics.
Premier wants to be practical. He wants to try to find a solution that can continue to support workers in British Columbia and Canada.
I assess that BC separation isn't just speculation anymore. It's becoming economically inevitable unless Ottawa dramatically changes policies that treat Western provinces like resource extraction colonies designed to subsidize Eastern Canadian social programs. The province has developed complete economic independence, which makes separation not just viable, but potentially more profitable than remaining in a confederation designed to redistribute its wealth to less productive regions. Subscribe now and tell me in the comments whether you think BC has the economic firepower to pull off independence. Because this constitutional showdown is about to get very interesting.